Hi, in this video, I'm going to talk about making a decision if you are in that less than 3% that are known as mental projectors or outer authority projectors, a projector with no authority or environment. This will be you if you have only the head and the ajna, or the ajna and the throat, or all three defined or coloured in your chart, and all of the centers below that throat are white. This is helpful for you if you are a so-called mental projector or you're trying to better understand a mental projector. Now, in the first part of this video, I'm going to get straight to the point of exactly how you are designed to make decisions. Then I'm going to debunk some of the language and the misunderstandings and the misconceptions and the confusion, and then we'll wrap it up and make sure you're super clear. Okay. You, my dear, have a way to make decisions that is true for you, that you can rely on, just like everyone else. You, as a projector, need to talk out with other people or animals or in spaces where you feel good, where you feel seen, where you feel heard, where you feel appreciated. You do not need other people's advice, which is why I say animals, because if you talk to your pets, they're great at listening without giving you advice. You are designed as somebody who is here to be extremely wise. Now, you might get lost in all of this openness. Depending on where you're at in your human design journey, you might get really lost when you hang out with other people. But you are here to become extremely wise, and it is extremely important. And I say extremely wise because I mean it. You're arguably some of the most wise people on the planet, but only when you can get really clear about what's yours and what's the other person's. So to make a decision, you need to talk out about the thing that you want to do, that you've been invited into because you are a projector, with people or in spaces where people will just listen to you, where you get to hear the sound and the frequency and the tone and the truth of your own voice. When you hear the truth, or your friends hear the truth, that's what you want to act on. And it's that simple. You need to speak. You need to keep talking until you find your truth about the thing you've been invited into, and you need to do that in spaces and with people where you feel good, where you feel valued, you feel wanted, and people recognize that you are your own wise source, your own authority on your life. That's it. You can go now. And let's debunk some of the language that's used in human design. Do you, as a projector of this type with just 2 or 3 centers up the top here, do you need to wait a full lunar cycle like reflectors? No, you only need long enough to be able to talk out and find your truth, however long that takes. That might take 1 day, it might take 29.5 days, but you are not tied to the moon the same way the reflector is. You just need enough time in the right spaces with the right people to talk out about the opportunity you've been invited into, whatever it is, and find your truth. And you keep talking and you keep looking for those right relationships in those right spaces. And once you found your truth, who cares how many days it is? It doesn't matter. It just matters that you found your truth. Next thing, this idea of no authority. This is a common term that's used with you, this particular type of projector. You have an authority. Now, we can get a bit confused with this term authority. Inner authority and outer authority are pieces of jargon in human design. And the idea is that that an authority is driven from the body, from one of the motor centers or even the identity center. It's just confusing. Like I see mental projectors all the time. If I use that term for you guys, which is the most common label you get given, but who cares? It's just a label, right? It's that you have definition in the top 2 or 3 centers only. The jargon is just confusing for you guys. So if anything in human design, grab the language and the teachers that feel good to you, that are clear to you, that are empowering, that help you make decisions, that help you move forward in your life, and just drop all the rest. Full permission to just drop everything where the language makes you feel ick or confused or stuck. So you don't have no authority, but there is this jargonish way that we can use it in human design to say you have no authority. Who cares? You don't need it. It's basically irrelevant. Now, speaking of authority, outer authority is another term that is used often by some really respected teachers in the human design space. And unfortunately, there are 2 different meanings for outer authority. One is that you are here to be a wise authority for other people outside of your physical body, outer authority. That has nothing to do with making decisions, right? Every person on the planet has the capacity to be an authority for people outside of them, an outer authority. And projectors are very much here to be an authority for the right people who have invited them. Key point, for the right people who have invited them only. And you, as a projector with just definition up here, when you get really clean and clear, as I spoke about before, about what's you and what's the other, you become the wisest people on the planet, which means you make an incredible authority for the right people for you, the people who value you and adore you and think that you're wise and want your insights. But that has nothing to do with inner authority. That has nothing to do with how you're designed to make decisions. So let's just be really clear on that distinction. Yes, you can be an authority for other people. Yes, you are designed to be an authority for other people, and only your people, the people who recognize and value you. Now, let's look at the other way, not confusing at all. Let's look at the other way that outer authority is used, which is that people and your environment around you, those things, those creatures, those spaces that are outside of you are your authority. Also not true. It is true that you are heavily influenced all the way down here. All of this, every time you come in contact with another person, another animal, arguably another space, we could look at the energetic influence of trees and rocks and plants and all sorts of things, right? You are influenced a lot by design. There's nothing broken. You are influenced a lot by your outer environment, by your outer people. But they're still not here to be your authority on your life and how you're designed to move forward. They are here to influence you. You are here to be influenced, but you're here to be influenced by the right people and the right environments. And you're still here in those environments, like I talked about in the beginning, to talk out and find out underneath all the rubbish and all the noise and all the mental constructs and all the stuff that your very, very, very strong mind can spit out, to listen through all of that junk and all of that noise for the sound that sounds true, that feels true, that rings true. You're listening for the tone and the frequency and the sound of your voice when you're around the right people, when you're in the right space, when you're in the right environment. Which brings me to the last piece of jargon I want to talk about. It is also very common to hear or see or read the term environment as your inner authority, your way to make decisions. As, actually, one more, mental projector. As a mental projector, we'll talk about mental projector as well. Environment. So if you're with me here, you have the top 2 or 3 only defined. Environment is confusing again. Environment has so much to do with the identity center, this diamond in the middle. Now, if you are one of these projectors we've been talking about, it will be white in your chart. But guess what? Every other type on the planet can also have the configuration of having that identity center, sometimes called the self center or the G center. You can see why human design gets really confusing with the jargon. Can also have that center white, which means that anything we talk about with environment doesn't just apply to you as this specific tiny group of projectors. It refers to something that all people with an open or undefined identity center also need to understand. And we've already talked about it. You need to be in the right spaces, the right environments. How do you know what's the right environment? You just feel good in those spaces. So do be particular about your environment. That's the only thing we need to say here. Be particular about your people and be particular about your spaces or your environments that you're in. If you feel good in your body, it's the right environment for you. If you don't, work out if you can leave. If it's at all possible, go to a different environment. Look for environments that feel good to you, just like you look for people that feel good to you, where you feel safe to authentically express yourself, because that's what you really need in order to be able to find your truth, so you know how to make the right decision, so you take the right action, which is what this whole video is about. Last one, mental projector. Another very common term, and the one I default to, as you've noticed, because that's what my training taught me. Now, mental projector, the reason that that term is used is because whether you have the head and the ajna, or the ajna and the throat, or all three defined, every single mental projector, see my default to that language, has the ajna defined, which is all the mind energy. It's all that thinking, processing, organizing, data analysis. It's all the things we think of when we think about what the human brain or the mind does. It's where all your beliefs live. It's the ability to be able to think all day long. If you guys can do anything all day long, it's think, right? You are mentally, cognitively really strong. But guess what? This is why this term mental authority is really confusing. The mind is not an authority. The mind, the ajna, has no connection to any of the parts of the rest of the system. Down here is where we can move. Down here is where we have the drive, the motors, the ability to move our body. And the ajna is not connected to any of them. The mind is not here to make decisions. As much as it's going to assert that it's so clever and it's so right and it knows all these things, it's doing a great job right now of processing the things that I say. That's what it's here for. The mind, the ajna specifically, is really here to collect all this information, right? But it's not here to make decisions. So use the things that we talked about so far in this, and I'm going to recap in a moment, for you to make the right decisions for you. Keep using that brilliant mind that you have to study anything that fascinates you, to learn, to collect information, because you're going to use that as a great guide for other people who have invited and recognized your wisdom. But don't use it to drive your own life, because it's not designed to drive your life, as much as it might try and convince you that it is. Probably multiple times every day, until you get used to really making aligned decisions the right way for you. So let's recap. If you are one of these projectors that is less than 3% of the population, based on the best statistics we have, we don't, just to be clear, we don't have really accurate statistics. There's no really clean way to get exact statistics, but there is a pretty good chance that you guys are less than 3% of the population, between 2.5% and 3%-ish. Which means, of course, just to be clear, the more rare, the rarer that a way that somebody is designed to make decisions, the rarer a configuration is of a human design chart, the less well we understand. Collectively, as a human design community, the less well it is understood, which is why it's really hard to get good quality information about you guys. So If you found it difficult up to this point to get really clean information, really clear information, that's why, because you're really rare. So 2, 1, 2, or 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3 are defined. If that's you, then you are somebody who is very open to influence the people and the environments around you. You have to prioritize improving. If you don't already have gorgeous, lovely people who just listen to you, talk out all your rubbish until you find your truth, then prioritize upgrading those relationships slowly, as fast as it feels safe to do, so that you get to hang out with people, whether they're your friends or your family or a coach who listens to you. But you really do need friends and family, even if it's just your friends, even if your family are rubbish at listening to you. Friends, partner, humans who are really good at listening to you, who really enjoy hanging out with you and are happy to just be your sounding board so that you can go blah and they will listen, and you're listening for that tone of voice, that frequency, the truth. And this person who is listening is not giving you advice. You know, you just need the space to be able to find out what your truth is. So they're listening, you're talking stuff out. If you really don't have relationships like that with humans, try talking to animals, try talking into your phone, try talking to trees, try talking to spaces. Get good at speaking out and listening for your truth while you upgrade those relationships. And prioritize being in spaces, environments that feel really good to you, because you are heavily influenced by the people and the places, the spaces where you hang out. And remember, of course, you are a projector, which means you're only making a decision and taking action because you have been invited into doing those things. I hope this video was helpful. If you are one of these projectors with only 2 or 3 centers up the top defined, I'd love to hear how this video landed for you. Feel free to share your experiences, your insights, your ways of navigating this. If you feel like you are now really good at making decisions this way, feel free to share them in the comments, and we'll have this as a resource for other projectors like you.